Hey everyone, welcome to this more or less impromptu Ask Me Anything. Don't really have any structure, plans, anything, so if you got questions, fire away. Put stuff in the side chat. If you have questions, we can have discussions, whatever you want to do. I'm here hanging out. As a lot of you know, follow me on social media, particularly Twitter. I sliced up my finger real good. So typing all day long is not really an option right now. Hurts way too much and might do some damage. So I'm trying not to. So I figured, hey, take an afternoon break and hang out with you guys and talk some history. So I know sometimes people are a little late to these things. So I'm going to give everybody a minute or two before we really start launching into anything crazy. But just off the top, there is another live stream tomorrow. With Louis LaBelle of Defining Moments Canada. We're going to be talking about, what are we going to talk about? Commemoration, education through classroom materials, through what Defining Moments Canada does, that kind of thing. They do stuff on sites. They do all kinds of stuff. Louis will be able to talk about it better than me. And that'll be tomorrow at 2 o'clock as well. So come check that out. Hang out with us again tomorrow, same time. Bring questions and learn about this organization that does a lot of different stuff. So, and not just military history either. It'll be a bit broader. We're going to focus on probably the military stuff, but they do all kinds of things. I think this year they're doing a ton with insulin, discovery of insulin 100 years ago. Frederick Banting and Charles Best and his team, all of those guys. So that's cool. So we'll talk about this stuff tomorrow. So that's coming up. So come hang out for that too and have lots of questions. I'm sure he'll be able to answer those for you. I thought my phone wasn't going to bother me, but it is. What else? So, OTD wise, so that's tomorrow. Nothing scheduled as of yet. I'm going to be thinking more about what I'm doing in the future. I announced on both YouTube and on Twitter that the next live stream battle series episode will be on Ortona. I'm waiting for a few things before I decide when to do that. Hopefully I can decide this week, maybe next day or two. We'll see. I might just put aside a slot and just do it. But it's going to be Ortona for sure. That's what I want to do. That's one I've worked on before in multiple capacities. I've got some stuff, I think some really interesting research that I've done on it and some insights into that one. Kind of a different spin, sort of like I took with Carpiquet there, just a bit of a different way. That's kind of easier to do over video, particular live stream, and that's all still with scripts and that kind of thing. Plus, my whole issue with YouTube and the monetization and everything. So that's a big plan there. Hopefully that's soon. I'm not sure. And then I'll follow that up with Saint Lambert Sir Dives and Actions of David Curry. That'll be a good one too, of course, because he wins the Victoria Cross, all that stuff. So after that, I'm not too sure. I've got some thinking to do. I've got some planning to do. Kind of a big thing next week. I can't really say what it is, but a big thing next week for me. Maybe that'll make my future a little clearer, and also the future of OTD. But also that said, if you're not a patron, please check that out. It's linked below. That's a great help to me and kind of continuing this at this sort of capacity. That is one thing I wanted to talk about. If things do change in the future, capacity might change. Timing wise, mounts will drastically go down depending on what I end up doing in the future. If I'm working some sort of other full-time job at another place or something, I can't keep up this pace, right? So if you can support me through Patreon, that'd be really great. There's levels, all different types of contributions. You can just do one time by signing up and then canceling it because it charges automatically now. You can also do per year with a discount. So that's cool. And lots of different stuff. I'm going to start to really use the Patreon page way more with all kinds of updates and stuff. I've got a planned post for when I'm finished. So look up for that. If you are a patron, you'll have access to that and kind of some things I'm thinking about doing next as well in terms of a video. And some insights on that one. So check that out. So yeah, anybody questions, fire away. I don't really have anything I want to talk off the top. Someone asked question on Twitter, but I don't know if Craig is here. I don't see him in the comments or anything. So if I'll give that one a wait. So if you guys have questions, fire away. Try to think if there's anything else. No, I think that's it. Working away on those videos that I did as part of my trip. The first one coming out tomorrow. It's already available for my patrons on the page. That'll come out tomorrow morning. It's an interesting one, kind of a different thing that I do normally here. And you'll see what I mean when this gets released. It's connected completely, but it's in a different way. So that's kind of what's going on there. So, and then more will be coming. Again, when I get some time to sit and think about a few things. And there's Craig. So we'll kick off. Well, you got to leave him coming back for more, Susan. Sorry. Gotta pump it up, get that hype going. I gotta get the views going and get the support more up on Patreon and things like that. So details are sparse. But you're a patron, you can get the details as soon as they're released. Anyway, Craig asked this on Twitter. If you don't know Craig, hey George, thanks for coming out. And anybody else I missed, sorry. Scott, I think I saw Scott Deanerly, other guys, Marks and Sparks. Hey guys, Chris, what's going on? Who else am I missing here? No, I think that's everybody I can see anyway. Anybody I missed, sorry. If you're not there, just shout out hi. If you just want to watch the rest of it, go ahead. Who's the most influential one? Oh, sorry, Craig, Canadian History X. He does all kinds of great stuff, podcasts. He's killing the TikTok thing, which is great. Different way. I love it. Different stuff on history, as you guys know. So check him out. It's all under the same name. Anyway, so who's the most influential leader in Canadian history? That is a really, really good question. Sorry, I've been talking nonstop since I started, so give me a second here. And thanks for saying that, Susan. Your support is whatever is going on. That's amazing. Thank you. So, who do I think? Now, you kind of gave it away in the tweet there, but I do think it's Curry. But it's not usually for the reasons people expect. I do think it is Curry. He's the most influential. And why do I say that? It's from research. It's not just from, secondary sources, which I'm starting to harp more on the primary sources, right? That's how I make my videos. That's what I focus on. Academic trained historian. Curry has an impact, obviously, in the First World War. Undeniable. He goes to Verdun, right, to learn what the French learned at Verdun. Brings those lessons back to the Canadian Corps, commands the 1st Division through Vimy. I mean, he's a brigade commander. Oh, no, I can't remember. Brigade, battalion? I think brigade. No, he's a brigade commander at 2nd EP. He's obviously around for the first years of the war, 1st Division at Vimy, and then pretty much takes over a month or two after that, right? So it's a big impact what he has in the First World War. Again, one of the videos I do want to do in the future, and it'll probably be a live stream thing, is Vimy's not the most important battle in Canada's military history. Not even close to the first one in the First World War. Not even the most important. Not even close. Just maybe get a little controversy. No such thing as bad PR. Anyway, but I want to get some sources and things to back that up. Anyway, so I think his impact obviously comes through things like Hill 70 when that starts, 1917. But then through the 100 Days, Passchendaele especially. I mean, Passchendaele isn't necessarily his fault for the high casualty rates. That's a whole other thing. But 100 Days, I mean, is his masterpiece. Canal du Nord especially. I say this all the time, but it's his masterpiece. And how he's able to carry that out. I mean, Vimy's planned over months. Canal du Nord is planned in weeks, less. So it's just a couple of weeks. So it's crazy. And what they were able to do, and all the army commanders were against it, right? Byng had been bumped up to army command, told him not to do it. His own commander, Henry Horn, said, good luck. Basically, we trust you. And they pulled it off. But why I think he's the most influential is that chunk, right? 100 Days on. Because 100 Days has an huge impact on how Canada's war is understood. Maybe not so much today, but things like the casualty rates and all that stuff, it's huge. Things like the entry into Mons. Big stuff. So, but also the interwar years, which doesn't get talked about a lot because he's not there for very long. He is in charge of the Canadian Army after the war. He's called the Chief Inspector. They changed the title multiple times. It drives me crazy. He's in the head. He's in charge. He doesn't do so well in the politics part. He comes to Ottawa, doesn't do so good with that. He's not a politician. He's a general, right? He's Canada's best general soldier. General, like general staff soldier. I mean, not battlefield, battlefield exploits in that sense, but planning, organizing, getting that stuff done. He's the best by far. I don't think anyone can come close. But why I think he's so important is that inter-war time when he's in charge, and who's left after. He only is there for, I think, a year or two overall. I can't remember off the top. Someone can let me know. Please do. Just a quick Google. I think my computer's still wonky after that huge outage we had. Still annoying. Anyway, so he's only there for a little bit, right? Makes some kind of important decisions about what the Canadian Army is going to look like in the post-war years, or tries to. It doesn't go well. Budgets are slashed like crazy, so it reduces in size. But where the real importance comes in is Curry's influence. It doesn't just go away, right? He moves to McGill and takes the leadership position there and head of the university, which he excels at because he's a planner and an organizer, which is perfect. But people are still constantly in contact with him. This is why I think it's so important. He's writing all these big names that we're probably going to talk about later, like Criar, he's talking to them. He talks to Stephen Simmons, who didn't serve with him. Like, he's talking to everybody, McNaughton especially. They talked a lot. And all the interwar commanders of the Canadian Army. Like, so influencing what Canada is going to look like in the Second World War, which obviously has an impact after. To me, that's important because he's writing these guys up until his death, his early death. Dies in 33. So he dies relatively young, but he still has this impact that I think is huge. They're asking him questions from the simple things to the big ones, and keeping in contact and all of this stuff. So it's huge. It's a big one. So that's kind of the answer. I know that might seem like a cop-out, but I think it's for a different reason. I don't even count Vimy as kind of a Curry thing. First Division's front was probably the easiest overall. I'm probably going to get some comments for that, but whatever. But also, it's not him, right? It's a massive general staff planned battle. That's not just Curry, right? We tend to think of it that way, and I don't know why that came from. Well, I know why. It's the Canadian nationalism that's polluted this, but it's 100 days, that post-war. He's trying to get a conscript army. Like, that's never discussed. He wants a conscript army in Canada, 1919 onwards. The government says you're crazy. That's not going to happen. But this influences how the ones who will come in charge later are thinking. So it's huge. Like, it's massive, right? Things of conscription, organization, all this stuff. To me, it's undeniable that it's hugely important, particularly as the Canadian Army ramps up into the Second World War and after, right? I think those impacts are massive and can't be denied. So I hope that answers your question, Craig. Oh, no, this is no. Angela's not making it. Ooh, that's a tough one. Favorite Canadian memorial and why? That's a tough one. I've been to a lot, obviously, seen all the major ones here and overseas. That's a really tough one. I don't know. I don't know if I have a favorite per se. The Hong Kong one obviously speaks to me a lot because of what I did for my dissertation and the whole story behind all of it. I think I talked about it on one of the live streams, just literally, and I've written about it multiple times. It's just literally the story of what it took to get the thing built is crazy in itself. And that's only, over 10, 15 years ago now. Just the issues they ran into just to get it built on that tiny little chunk of land that nobody was using. It's in and of itself, it's crazy. I must say, if I have to pick like a favorite, it's the National Memorial. Why? Is because it's a place to come together within Canada, and it is used as a central focal point in Ottawa for all kinds of things, right? It's the National Remembrance Day ceremony is held there every year, except for the COVID interruptions. It's literally a meeting place in the city. It's in the middle of everything. The Tomb of the Unknown Soldier is there, and all the symbolism behind that is massive. That's a big one for me. That's a big one for me. It's the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, because I was only 2000. How old was I? 10? No, 12 when that happened. So it had a huge impact on how I understood Canada's history and military history generally and all that big stuff. So it was a big one for me. And obviously I live here, so I go there all the time. It's a big one in terms of literally size. It stands out, and it's got a sad history as well with Corporal Nathan Cirillo, who was murdered there. Brings a whole other layer of sorrow and duty and devotion and everything. It's I don't know, maybe it's because the Ottawa in me now, but it stands out for that alone. And we don't have one for other wars, right? We don't have the First World War. We don't have a second or peace. We have the peacekeepers, but it's not for like peacekeeping, if that makes any sense. Like for those who fell, it's all at that one spot. So again, maybe that's a cop out, but it's just how I think about it in terms of where I'm at in terms of thinking about these things. And again, saying favorites, not exactly easy, but it is the strike. It's striking. The story behind it is just almost as fascinating as the Vimy Memorial. It's not crazy because Allward was a whole other level of crazy artist. Again, maybe there's another idea for a live stream talking about the Vimy Memorial and a little more process, which I don't think is very well understood. But it's a bit crazy how this all stuff and how long it took to make is a bit out there. So Scott, thanks for coming out. What do we got? 1812 naval engagements. Yeah, cool. I should probably check that out if I get a chance, or play in the background or something. How well are those engagements commemorated and known in Canada? Not at all. 1812 is not very well known, generally speaking. Really outside Ontario, maybe Quebec. Quebec kind of. But again, this is just my personal experience. I grew up in Southern Ontario, as a lot of you know. That was like 1812 hotbed, right there in the Niagara Peninsula. So lots of commemoration in both those places. The trip I took at the end of June, I think I went to two actual battlefields that were less than an hour from my parents' house. There's others around, but the naval engagements are not well known at all, particularly Lake Erie, not known, right? The American control of Lake Erie and what that does, it's a domino effect on the war, how it's carried out, which I'm going to talk about in a future video on the Battle of the Thames with the death of Tecumseh and all of that. That's going to be a complicated one that I need to do some more research on. That's why it's going to take a bit longer. It's going to take a bit for that one, just because it's got so many layers and it's not just so simple as a small engagement as it is on the ground. It's got waves and it's connected in so many ways. So Lake Erie is the big one, but it's not well known. And I mean, people who live literally on Lake Erie probably have no idea that lake was a battleground. Not ground. It was a battlefield, right? And the oceans are battlefields too. No idea. 1812 is known just, but generally, right? There's known that there was American invasions in the peninsula and up from Detroit and all that stuff. That's known, but especially the naval stuff, not known very well. I think it depends on locally where you are. I think it's pretty well known in Kingston because they had the naval yard and they still could play that up with Fort Henry and all that stuff. But most of the places have no idea. I'm sure there's commemorations out there. I'm sure there are. I don't know where they are. And they haven't made a big impact on me. So I don't know. Maybe that can be another future trip when I check stuff out, if I'm still doing this stuff in the future. See if I can see what's there in terms of that. But it's a big one in terms of the war itself, right? But after that, I think it's pretty much just forgotten. Sorry, everything's jumping on me here. If Bert Hoffmeister is considered arguably the best Canadian tank general in World War II, why was he kept in tank-unfriendly country of Italy and not considered for a command in Overlord or Northwest Europe? Sorry, one second. That is a really good question. I haven't studied Hoffmeister as closely as I'd like. Like I haven't looked at anything related to him in terms of papers. The other ones I have, the big ones especially, been through Crear's papers backwards and forwards. Hoffmeister, I mean, I'm just kind of speculating at this point, but he's militia, right? He's not regular permanent army. So that's kind of knock against him. I mean, he starts pretty small, right? Command of the Seaforths. I mean, I think that more speaks to the 5th Armored Division, in Italy generally, right? They said, don't bother. They said, we don't need a tank. We don't need an armored division. Overall British command said, why we can't take, we don't need a tank division. We don't need an armored division in Italy. But why there was 2 armored divisions comes back again to Mackenzie King. Issues of conscription, keeping casualties low, right? Armored divisions have less people in them. Less people equals less casualties, even if, say, a whole division is wiped out, right? It's less. That was a big draw for the Canadian government at the time. Also limiting resources, recruitment not where it could have been or where they wanted it to be. So keep an armored division in line. You're making a contribution. Yeah, you're fighting in there. You've got 2 corps going, which didn't happen in the First World War, right? That was a big one, right? Have a corps and then have a Canadian army. So that's part of that. So that's a big part of this. Why Hofmeister is not given that command? I mean, he does eventually command in Northwest Europe, right? When the divisions are moved from Italy, but it's like a last minute thing, right? They come in very, very late. But why, in terms of, I don't know personally. I just know some of the generals were against militia officers at that high level. They tried to avoid them. If personal, I don't know. If possible, sorry, I don't know the personal story behind that one because I've never looked at Hofmeister like himself. Like I looked at relationships between Kriar and McNaughton and say Ellenbrook and all that stuff. I've done that high level. Hofmeister just didn't come into those conversations yet because I was doing Hong Kong, right? So 41 and before, because after that I was moving on in different stuff. So I'm not too sure if there's a personal reason. If someone has an idea or sources or whatever, please let me know. And I haven't read the book on Hofmeister fully ever. I've looked at it, but I haven't read the whole thing, so I don't know per se. And this isn't necessarily my opinion. I don't know enough to form it, but some people said Hofmeister just wasn't good enough to be in higher command. So that's kind of why they kept them there. Take from that what you will. But that's what I've heard. I'm saying that's what I think, but that's what I've heard. So, yeah. But I think that's more to do with Fifth Armor than anything to do with Hofmeister. That's funny, Pete. Kind of. I mean, technically, yes. Detroit is captured without a shot being fired. He Tecumseh, asks Brock to do the attack. Brock doesn't want to, or doesn't want to, try and take the city. They trick the Americans into thinking that they're 4 times the size they actually are. Detroit surrenders without a shot. Also, Detroit is abandoned without a shot. When Lake Erie falls, right, when the last vestiges of the Royal Navy are defeated on Lake Erie, worries of supply lines, they fall back. And that's where Battle of the Thames occurs, and that smaller skirmishes and things like that. That's all connected. So that's something that is really interesting and can be talked about at length. But it was an interesting chunk of the war with all this exchange and the extended timeline and everything. It's pretty interesting. What do you think is one of the most defining moments in Canadian politics? That's a really good question. I'm going to take, because this is the military history channel, I'm going to take a military history angle on this, if that's okay, and say the conscription crisis of the First World War. Why I think so is because of the long-ranging impact that thing has, and still does today, and a lot of people don't realize how much of an impact it truly does. Right? It's a split in the government, right? The Liberal Party basically rips itself in half. Half joins, the Conservative Party who's in power, and a union government, right? They literally call themselves the union government. It's the only coalition government that Canada has had since Confederation. We haven't had one since. The rest of the Liberals stay under Laurier until his death, and that's when King comes on the scene. So I think that's hugely important because King stays in the Liberal Party. He doesn't jump ship to get a cabinet position or whatever. Yes, he's not in Parliament. Doesn't matter. It still has an impact, right? I don't think King takes the leadership without conscription and the split in the party because he stays loyal to Laurier. That has a huge impact moving forward. Obviously, King is to the point of obsession with conscription. I called in my dissertation like the sword of Damocles over his head, right? Like it's gonna fall at any moment. Take him out. Like he's obsessed, from September 1st, 1939 through to the end of the war. That's one of his primary things he's constantly talking about. Do it, just don't make sure we don't have conscription. But if we have to do it, let's manage it. Let's wait it out. Let it literally do anything we can other than sending conscripted men into the front lines. Like that to me is huge. And also the identity elements that are connected to conscription. Quebec still thinks about conscription, rather indirectly, I would say, because I've talked to people about this and how they think about it. Right? They remember the shootings in Quebec City for the Easter riots. That's still remembered. It's commemorated. It's remembered as it should be, but it still has an impact on how people think about even the Conservative Party in Canada today. They're just, I don't want those guys who killed us in the streets, to be in power. I've heard that from people. So it still has an impact, which is interesting. So I think to me, that's a defining moment because it has a ripple effect through decades of Canadian politics. And Craig does this a lot more than I do. So maybe he'll have different opinions. But to me, that conscription crisis sets into motion lots of things in modern Canada, what defines modern Canada, and who gets in when, I think is a massive impact. Because without King, you don't have modern Canada as it is today. I'll argue that one tooth and nail because it all comes back to King wanting to hold power as long as possible. Doesn't want to lose it. That's all he had, right? No, he had no partner, no children. His mother had passed away. He had his dogs who kept, they would die because he's got to live forever. To me, it's just like he was lonely and the power was what he had. So he did anything to cling to that. Changing, the ideology of the Liberal Party in a way, finessing the war, whatever. He did whatever he had to do. And I think that he comes directly because of conscription. Could have been a different leader if the Liberal Party had split. Who knows, right? But that's what happened. So I think that's a big one. So how well is the Battle of... Scott's question for the Land War of 1812. Battle of York, fairly well known. Actually, I'll come back to York in a second. I think the best known one is Queenston Heights. I know Greg is also, I think he's got something coming up, or he just did it. I can't remember. Connected to that. He's doing an episode on that, I think. Yeah, tell me if I'm wrong, Greg. But I think that's the one that's probably the best well known because Brock is killed there. Their schools, everything's named after Brock. He's got a university. He spends 5 minutes in Canada and is a national hero because he gets killed. Queenston Heights. He's probably like, if you come back alive today, be like, why is this stuff named after me? I don't know who these people are. I just died here, led in 2 battles, and we treat him like he's the greatest Canadian ever, even though he's like Canadian. What are you talking about? Anyway, so Battle of York is fairly well known. I'm not going to deny that. Why it's well known, I think, is because of the location. It's downtown Toronto. That is prime downtown Toronto, literal real estate, surrounded by office buildings, condo buildings, which go up like crazy in that part of town. A friend of mine lives right near there. He knows about it, doesn't give a toot about history, but knows about the Battle of York because he walks his dog there. That's it. People know it because it's where it is. People don't really know the details, but they know Fort York is there. They know there was a battle there. Kind of bloody, but they don't really know much else. It's not really well known. Now, the burning of York is known, right, after the fact. Not the battle necessarily, but the sacking of York, right, which is said to be why Washington is burned, right, when the British, not Canadians, when the British go to the Chesapeake Bay campaign. There's no Canadians there. Maybe there was 1 or 2 guys that served in Canada. I don't know. There's no direct connection. Anyway, that's said to be the reason why they burned the White House and all the public buildings, was because of the sacking of York. Actually, it was actually because of the sacking of Port Dover. Those of you Canadians who might know Port Dover for the the motorcycles that go there every Friday the 13th, no matter the weather. That's probably what you know Port Dover for. But it's said to be actually because of the sacking of Port Dover, not because of York. So it's one of those battles that gets mixed up in Canadian mythology of the war and identity and how we take things from 1812, which is its own kettle of fish, but it's known for that reason. But no one really knows why York was burned, right? York was burned, so we burnt down the White House. And they say we, they mean Canadians, and I go, well, that's just not true. Then they don't like hearing that. But I'd say Queenston Heights is the best known battle of the War of 1812. Americans watching, you guys probably know New Orleans, right? That's probably your best known battle because of the songs and maybe, and also the attack on the fort that led to the Star Spangled Banner. That might be better known, whether you know it or not. But probably the Battle of New Orleans is probably the best known battle because of Jackson and all that stuff. But in Canada, the Battle of New Orleans, everyone's like, wasn't the war over? Technically, no, but it wasn't technically over. But it's not the one that's best known here. York is known, if you live in Toronto, you know the Battle of York because it's smack dab in the middle of the city and down the street from the Blue Jays and where the Leafs play. So I think that has a major impact. Oh, this is a really good question. Thanks, Ian, for watching and joining us. So, if you could have any sort of artifact from Canadian military history restored, ship, a plane, a vehicle, a fort, etc., what would you pick? And how could it help tell a part of the Canadian story? That's a really good question. Can I give 2 answers? That's a really good one. I really like it. I want to give 2 answers to that, if that's okay. I can't help myself. But so the first one I'm thinking of is going to be an unconventional answer. Maybe you don't count this as an artifact. What I would like back at all, because they were literally burned, is the conscription court records or conscription trials. What's the word I'm thinking of here? Appeals. When you were called up and you didn't want to serve for whatever reason, or you couldn't serve for whatever reason, you go to the local board, say, I can't do it. These are the reasons. Lyman Duff, who was the Supreme Court Justice of Canada, also known connected to Hong Kong and all kinds of other legal cases, ordered them burned after the war. That drives me insane because we don't know so as much as we could about conscription, what people were saying, why they wanted out, what they did to get out. Were they valid? Were they not valid? We don't know. They were burned. All of them burned. The only thing you can find is in newspapers and diaries and everything, but the official records are gone. They were burned. I'm hoping one day somebody stashed them somewhere and they get they come out. I hope, but I'm not hopeful that that's the case. I'm not holding my breath. So that's one I would think, but that's like a primary document. I don't know if that's exactly what you're asking for. Military history restored. That's a tough one because you pick one, you're going to upset somebody. And we have lots restored, right? We have Louisburg's been restored and all that stuff. And the Citadel at Halifax and Plains of Abraham is a good one. That one's not really, because it's old base, you can't really access it. That's a really tough question, actually. Because they can all help tell stories, right? You need, and I say this with the channel, why I do the channel, why I think important work I'm doing with the channel, not trying to toot my own horn, but is having something, visceral in a sense, like, a fort, or like you're saying, a plane, or something to hang on to have a conversation about, right? That's where these things start. That is important to me. So to pick one off the top, I'm not too sure. That's a tough one. I'm trying to think of something like that that could coalesce around, that could do that. I don't think that's possible, to be honest, because we do have some stuff and it's really well done. We're getting more and more done. I'm trying to think of something older that might be better. I think Plains of Abraham is an interesting one. It's not that it's not in its original state as it was on the day of that battle. Right? They dug earthworks after the fact to defend against the Americans, so that battlefield doesn't look the same. I think that would just be interesting if that were returned to its 1759 state. To me, that would be really, really interesting, because that battle obviously holds an important place in Canadian identity, mythology, history, politics, everything. So that'd be one. I've always wondered what it really would have looked like, right? Like, what does that field look like on the day that Wolfe and Montcalm were killed, when those armies clashed for about half an hour? What would that look like? Because I think that would be a cool way of bringing the story back, telling it and trying to tell it to both sides. I mean, it's one of the memorials. There's only one of the few memorials in the world that has the victor and the vanquished on the same one. Most people don't know that. It's one of the few in the world out there, and it's still there. So I think that would be a good one, because I think that would have the biggest overall impact on telling Canada's story from the beginning, bringing in the Indigenous story because they're there as well. I mean, all of this is connected, right? So I think it's a huge one. That would be cool to see in its original state, right? Because I see this a lot with U.S. Civil War battlefields, right? Things are added after the fact, buildings, towers, whatever. People are upset trying to get rid of them. And again, don't blame you, because you're trying to get at what it really looked like. And I think that's a good idea. But again, Plains of Abraham is going to be hard to do. Those earthworks are massive. It would just that's cool. I think that's a cool one, because I can't really pick an item, because then you're going to piss off a service. You're going to piss off a group that's interested in, say, First World War over the Second. I really don't know. It's a tough one, but I'm going to say Plains of Abraham, just because I think it would be just a place to tell the story in Quebec, on a historical place that's got all these threads running through it, and I think it would be a great place to do it. So hopefully that answers your question. Sorry, I just want to make sure I didn't miss it. No, yeah. So, okay, Scott's got another one. This is a really good one. I might have been talking about the arrow a little bit. So, the cancellation and destruction of the arrow is it still controversial? Yes, it's hugely controversial, big time for so many reasons. Sorry, Americans, love your support, loving you having you here, and I don't believe this. They think, and I'm using that term generally, a large chunk of the Canadian population thinks the arrow was canceled because the Americans told Diefenbaker to get rid of it because we were ahead of them in technology. Not true. That is not true. There's no proof of any of this anywhere in any shape or form. That is what makes it controversial. We were told by the Americans to get rid of our advancements. We were going to be at the leading edge of aerospace. We were at the leading edge of aerospace, then we literally chucked it in the lake. I'm saying literally because they literally chucked the models in the lake. Like Ontario, they've recovered a few of them. They're on display in places, and they're working on those, which is cool. But yes, hugely controversial for that reason. They think we would have been far ahead in the aerospace industry now. I disagree. Because of the things I've looked into about the aerospace industry, there's just not enough Canadians to make a difference in that field to be at that leading edge. That's why the costs had overrun. It was expensive. It wasn't going to do its intended role. It was an interceptor, right? A bomber interceptor. That's not going to stop an ICBM. Great. You can take out a bunch of Soviet bombers that are copies of the Americans. Stupendous. What happens when those missiles just blow by the window of the arrow? What are they going to do? Just watch the world end? It was just too much money. It wasn't needed. People don't like when I say that, but the arrow is just not needed. It was surpassed even before it was built. So that's controversial for that reason. And people just don't like Diefenbaker for all kinds of other reasons. Again, Craig could probably speak to that better than I can. And people use that to hate on Diefenbaker. Some people who don't like him use it as the only good thing he's ever done, which I think is really, really interesting. And yeah, it brings in the anti-Americanism that's still present in Canadian society generally, because we love to hate the United States in a lot of ways because it makes us feel superior, even though we're not. It's part of that. So yes, hugely controversial. It still gets people's backs up, raises the hairs on the back of people's necks in Canada, right? And you hear arrow and people's ears perk like satellite dishes, right? It's still very much a thing. Sorry, I got a little heavy here. So what event battle or event World War II do you wish more Canadians knew about? Okay, yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good question. I have to think about that one for a second. There's lots, obviously. To me, the earlier war, I think, needs to be better understood in that sense. And I would say Dieppe. And why would I say Dieppe? It's kind of the same thread that I was talking about earlier there, just about with the arrow question. It's just that's the anti-British form, right? I wish Dieppe was better understood in terms of why it happened, generally speaking. I know David O'Keefe has done great work and the archives and digging and finding all kinds of good stuff to support his pinch thesis, theory, whatever. I'm not talking about that per se. That's like that's the spark that lights the fire kind of thing. I'm talking about why is there fuel for a fire to begin with. I think that needs to be understood better in terms of how Canada thought of itself in 1942, what had and hadn't done. You have the defeat in Hong Kong, and that's it. Canadian Army had not been involved in combat. You've got South Africans, Kiwis, Aussies, all doing this stuff in the North African desert. Canada sitting along the Sussex coast doing nothing. That's how it's perceived. That's the government's getting attacked for this. People are pissed off, right? We are the great Canadians. We defeated the Kaiser single-handedly last war. Let us do something. Why aren't we doing something, King? Why aren't you letting us do anything? So there's all this pressure to do something. Dieppe is the outcome of that. Because we had been doing nothing. I say we as Canada, the Canadian Army. Canada hoists itself in there, right? They sneak their way in. You're like, well, take 2nd Division. They can do it, right? And obviously, it doesn't go well for all kinds of things. That's not what I'm talking about. I wish the reasons behind Dieppe and the early war years were better understood. We go Dieppe. The British sent us to slaughter because we're just cannon fodder for the Brits. like that's Hong Kong, Dieppe, that's the entire narrative of the First World War. We're just cannon fodder. That's not the case at all. Canadians have agency. They decide these things. They can say no because they did say no. Canadian government said no multiple times after Hong Kong, before Hong Kong. They didn't have to throw a second division in there. It could have been nothing. They could have just sat there and watched it happen and had combined ops and all the commandos go down in the same fiery, slaughter pen that is Dieppe. But they wanted to go in. The men wanted to go in. They wanted to fight. So they did. I mean, I don't know how many people know, but in the initial iteration of Dieppe called Operation Rudder, which was canceled. Again, I don't know if this is apocryphal or not. It's in books, but apparently some of the men were crying that they couldn't go fight when they were told, get off the boats and go back. I don't know if that can be supported within more than just what I've seen in books, but I mean, that's a huge part that's forgotten about Dieppe. It's just all the Canadians got slaughtered again. No, it wasn't the British fault. It was our own. We said, let's go. And they did. They went, and it did not go well. And now we blame somebody else because that's what we do. I've talked about this. I'll link it below after, actually. A Fascination with Defeat live stream I did, I think, early in the new year, late last year. What we focus on. We have mistakes. We don't take ownership of our mistakes. We just blame somebody else. It's always somebody else's fault, no matter what it is. The Arrow, Dieppe, Hong Kong, the high casualty rates of the First World War. It's always somebody else's fault. It's never our own fault. Somebody else made us do it. So I think that's part of that. And that's what I would say is Dieppe. I mean, normally you would think like Normandy, right? The great campaign that is run by 1st Canadian Army, especially. But I think understanding the early war needs to be understood better because we focus on things like the Netherlands, which is, again, a great accomplishment. But why is that happening? Why is there even a 1st Canadian Army in this sense, right? Where's the other corps in it, right? Like, all of this plays into it. So I think that's my answer. Oh, sorry, Lorelai, I missed you there. Yes, thanks, everyone. Remember to hit the like button. Thank you very much. Okay, so where are we at here? Canadian War Museum doing a good job. And what could it do better? Okay, one second. Canadian War Museum does an excellent job. I know lots of people who work there. I've worked for them multiple times. I may hope to work for them again in the future, possibly. I don't want to say too much, but they do a good job. I'm not just saying that for job prospects. They do a great job with many things. The layout of the museum itself, if you've never been, it's a chronological order, but it just makes sense. It's connected. There's a thread through it. You understand it. You can use these artifacts as they place them literally on the floor and the different ones they have. It's one of the best, I think, in the world in terms of that. It's not a mishmash. It doesn't make any sense. Looking at you, Imperial War Museum, where your layout makes zero sense. It's just nonsensical in some of those galleries. I'm like, what is happening? I have to walk backwards through the exhibit. What is this? That's crazy. That part is done amazingly well. Some of the artifacts on display are fantastic. Some are controversial, right? There's one of Hitler's cars is there. They were donated, I can't remember, in the 70s, maybe, a while back. They didn't know what to do with it. Doesn't really fit with the Canadian story at all because it was captured by Americans and they took some pot shots at it. As you can see, if you go there, it's got bullet holes in it. So that's a whole other thing. It's not my story to tell. It's Jack Granatstein's story, not mine. Say what you will about him, but it's his story. I think they're doing a good job with that. They bring in a lot of people. Ottawa, the visitors were, through the roof before COVID hit. And they've taken a bit of a whack from COVID, as everyone has. I think they also do a good job with temporary exhibits. Some I've helped with. Some they bring in from outside vendors and kind of fit them into the story when supported by their own artifacts. They have all kinds of great ones. The one there right now is amazing. Not just because I helped work on it, but it looks at individuals throughout the Second World War and showing that Canada is not just Northwest Europe or Italy or whatever. It's a global war and Canada is globally involved. And it does that. I think that's great. That is amazing. I love going there. I'm going there this week. I might go in there for research. I might just, take the rest of the day and do some touring, get some videos, some pictures, and just kind of hang out a little bit because I might just do that anyway. I don't know. I haven't thought about it yet. Anyway, so that stuff is great. I love going there. I love seeing the tech and the way they tell the stories and things. I love it. There's all kinds of medals. The VCs, like Curry's is there. Osborne from Hong Kong is there. First World War ones. There's all kinds of great stuff. Brock's tunic from Queenston Heights is there. all kinds of stuff. It's full of great stuff. They have indigenous artifacts, which is amazing. Talking about indigenous warfare, which I think is fascinating. What they could improve on, and I know some people there have said so, is the digital offerings. They are not as good as they could be. The amount of funding, presence, and everything that museum has, their digital offerings are minimal at best. They just don't exist. They need more. They don't offer enough. They have a few on the website. They're not easy to use. It's not the best. They're not entertaining in any way, I would argue. The social media has a large presence. Not saying it doesn't. Just what they do with it is not how I would do with it, but that's my opinion. That's all opinion. They could be engaged more, I think. But I think lots of people could be engaged more, have a little bit more personality. They don't. It seems very dry and sterile, and it's a big organization. Lots of things need lots of approvals. It feels like it could have a little more personality and connect that way. I think I've done that with Twitter and other places. I think with that here, there's a bit of personality here. At least I like to think so. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's missing, and I think that is the way to reach new people, new Canadians especially. Because I've thought about this a lot, and I've talked to people about this a lot. And this is one that I'm not saying they're doing poorly or not, because I just don't think it's been thought about by anybody, is how do you connect with new Canadians? Those who don't have that background of relatives who were here, right, during the World Wars or the early Cold War or whatever. How do you make them interested in the history of their new home, right? How do you do that? I don't have an answer, but I think there's got to be some sort of work. There's got to be trial periods. You got to try doing this digitally. You have to connect to kids who are coming to this country because kids are, they're great when they learn languages, like drop of a hat, new technologies and things like that. They should be, getting focused on that more and getting those kids interested, and then getting their parents interested, right? Just because they come from wherever doesn't mean they can't become interested in Canadian history, right? There's so many stories here, so many different threads you can pull out and pick out from all over across the world that have a Canadian connection, because I say we get everywhere, right? We're everywhere. That is what I would do. And I think that's a big challenge for everyone coming in the history space, military history, especially in Canada. It's not going to be just good enough to do prime ministers and all that stuff anymore, because anyone's going to be like, why do I care? Right? You got to do something better. And I think that something can be better. And I think digitally is the way to go. And I think you just got to start. You got to try. Some stuff might fail, but that's what you got to do. And with digital, there's a little less cleanup. So that's my thoughts. Hopefully that answers what you're thinking about, Chris. Sorry, I'm just reading some of these comments. Yeah, see, Craig, I told Craig would know better than me about the arrow and stuff. Yeah, it's interesting. Right? That's all people do. Bigger, you carry the arrow, or they're from where he's from. Oh, I love him because he's from there. Whatever. Yeah, Uganda's an interesting one. Yeah, there's lots of artifacts from across other time periods that could, from other countries, I think are a good way of going about it. But I'm not sure for Canada. I just don't think we have a unifying way about going of this, thinking about our military history. We don't have those like grasping central things other than Vimy, which is there for the wrong reasons. We lack that. We lack that sort of cohesion, right? We don't have these big battles that define countries, right? We just don't have it. We have Vimy, but again, it's for the wrong reasons. Or things like Curry's the commander, which is just not true, right? It's just, we're going to coalesce against a lie, and not like, a national lie where we're like, oh, downplay the parts. It's like, that's literally not the truth. Like, he was literally not in charge. So like, it's not like forgetting a part. It's being like, well, he was there. I'm like, no, he wasn't. So that doesn't work, So to me, that's difficult with that question, because I think about this one a lot, obviously, and unifying and getting people interested, because that's my main goal, right? Is get more people interested in Canadian military history. That's always been my goal from day one. And I think about that a lot. And I do think objects have a power to bring people in, and getting the stories and getting them excited, that is there. I just can't think of one defining big thing. I just don't think it exists, to be honest. Yeah, if you guys have more questions, fire away. I'm just reading some of these comments. Yeah, the Canadian War Museum is great. That said, do visit it. If anyone's in Ottawa and wants me to take them through, I'm more than happy to do so. I will. I'll go with you if I can make it work, if I have time off that day or whatever. Yeah, definitely let me know through social media or email if you have it. Or if you're a patron, just get in touch. You know how. I'm more than happy to take anyone through and give my insights and show you some of the stuff you might miss and the way they've set things up. And it's great. It's an amazing museum, and give you some insights if you're coming this summer to the World War II temporary exhibit, because I was there. They were working on this years and years and years ago. So I think that's kind of cool. So yeah, definitely. And another shout out to the RCR Museum. They are amazing as well. Took some video there when I was down in the London area. Another great one. They're doing some changes there, and which should be done shortly, which is great. They're going to do some more Cold War, Afghanistan stuff. So I'm not sure entirely what that is, but if you're in the area, I highly suggest it. Go check it out. They're great, and they have very spirited and knowledgeable volunteers who know so much, and you can learn so much from them just talking to them in the lobby, which I've done multiple times. I think we got another one here. Okay, if there's no Fenian raid in 1866, yeah, the Battle of Ridgeway, how much longer would Confederation have been delayed by the provinces? Was a direct military annexation ever close to being enacted on by the, I assume you mean the United States, Marks? I think that's what you mean. Well, the wheels were already in motion for Confederation by this point, by the time of Ridgeway. So I don't think it would have sped it up or delayed it because they're already happening. I think it's the earlier ones that have the impact. There was a drive for Union in Ontario with the rest of them for all kinds of reasons. Having Ontario be the most powerful province is probably one of them. That was part of it. That's undeniable. But I mean, just generally overall, the Fenian raids are huge. Like, they're a massive impact on Canada. I do think Confederation becomes because of them, because of what's brewing in the South, right? Or which brewed and blew up. Sorry, Americans, with that Civil War. Jeez. That was a rough one. That has a huge impact on Canada and Confederation, how Canada becomes a nation in that sense, right? How things come together, why certain provinces, as they are called at the time as well, don't join Confederation, right? Is part of that as well. Like, the conference is held in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. Is Prince Edward Island one of the original provinces? No, it's not. The Canadas, as they were called at the time, Quebec and Ontario, Canada East and West, were one province. They crashed this maritime conference and took over and said, we're going to make Canada. Come on board. I said, no. They come later. But I think it's an interesting part, right? Why does this island province give a crap about getting hit at the border? These things change, right? Having the United States on your border, particularly one with one of the largest standing armies in the world at the time, right? That does very quickly, obviously, in the American tradition up until World War II and after, of no standing army. So it has a massive impact. Now, in terms of a direct military annexation at the time, if you're talking about the United States generally, or if you're talking about the Fenians had, as they say, a snowball's chance. Not even close. They could barely defeat these well-trained veterans of the U.S. Civil War. Could barely defeat a bunch of militia guys who didn't know anything what they were doing. They had no idea what they were doing, and they still held them off in places. Ridgeway's one of them. I mean, Ridgeway's not a victory by any means, but it stops the attacks at that time. And that thrust in particular really does a number on the Americans. And it's the British militia that do it to them. Sorry, the British military, the regulars, which are still in Canada at that point. But no, the Fenians have no chance of taking Canada or the Canadas and holding them for ransom for Ireland. That's just crazy. And in terms of the United States, no. The United States had no real plan to do so. They tried in 1812, whether what people will tell you, the main goal of the United States declaring war on Great Britain in 1812 is to annex Canada. It's not to do shipping rights or we had to stand up for ourselves. The British are pushing us around in trade and, impressing our sailors. It was to annex Canada. They failed. They tried to invade Canada multiple times, as we were talking about earlier, through Detroit, through Niagara, up in Quebec. They tried and failed. Every expedition is a big failure, and lots of Americans are dead. But by this point, by the 1860s, it's just not on the table. The directions had changed. Sorry, I'm just reading about the Great Dominion's comment. Thanks for joining us. Finian killed Darcy McGee, the only political assassination in Canadian history federally. Happened in the streets of Ottawa, actually. Anyway, I can talk about that in a second. But annexation, no, right? American views of where to expand had changed, right? That's one of the causes of the U.S. Civil War, is the expansion of slavery west, right? They're not looking to go north. They're looking to go west. The northern states, or whatever you want to call them, are not looking to expand over the border. They're looking to expand trade because that's their best bet. But then after the Civil War and with Mexico and all of that, that kind of ramps up a little bit and gets kind of lost in all the shuffle here of things that happened in the 1850s. They're looking south, right? Cuba is a huge one, obviously. That comes to war later. But they're not looking at Canada. It's too difficult. We're still under British protection, right? Even after Confederation for a long time, right? The British regulars don't leave for a very long time for independent country. They were not independent, though. But the British Royal Navy presence goes on until the 20th century. The United States couldn't have held a candle to the Royal Navy. They would have been blown out of the water, literally. This is an 1812 here. They're not fighting Napoleon at the same time, right? It's the only reason why America can get the victories it does, because Britain's a little distracted. This time they're fighting just colonial wars against small powers that they're taking and killing them all, taking their land. That is a big impact, because I studied this, interestingly enough, in undergrad. It's an interesting story to think about. Well, they could have. I mean, they could have. I don't think the veterans would have been too happy to keep fighting for another reason. That kind of thing. Why are we fighting Canada now? That doesn't make any sense. And Canada, yes, did support the Confederacy in multiple ways. I'm not denying that. And that's another stain on our already stained history, the banner of Canadian history. But there's no real way that Canada is going to get annexed when you got the Royal Navy behind you, particularly the Royal Navy of that time period. They control the world's oceans. They could have blockaded the United States, make the Anaconda plan on the Confederacy look like child's play. So it's just not something that was possible. And I've got a question here, but and then Eccles Hill in Quebec really crushes it outright. It just crushes the Fenian movement completely in the United States, and it ends. And the American government is like, okay, this is enough. I mean, I'm not saying the American government wasn't against it if it had worked, per se. I mean, but they weren't really stopping them, but they also weren't aiding them. So it's a really interesting way of going about it. But yes, the darn Canadians didn't want to cooperate, particularly at any time. You guys keep coming across that border, and we're like, what are you doing? Stop it. It just doesn't go well for you guys for just all kinds of reasons, mostly your own fault, which is, I mean, it's hundreds of 200 years later. It's kind of funny that you think literally it's going to, what did Jefferson say? A mere matter of marching. Yeah, that marching is a little difficult when it's 300 miles and everyone has dysentery and you have no supplies. And also you got malaria, because there's malaria then too. And summers in southern Ontario are no joke. And neither are the winters. Try invading that. It's not good. Anyway, so but the causes of 1812, all about impressing sailors and all this stuff, and merchant ships and all of that with the Continental Plan with Napoleon. But if this was true, why didn't the United States declare war on France? If they're so pissed off about their sailors and their boats getting boarded, why didn't they fight Napoleon? They wanted Canada. They failed. They tried to take Canada before, right? 1775, the invasion of Quebec. Well, they'll join us. They were met with volleys of musket fire. and freezing to death, which is always fun. Yeah, so I mean that's how I think about the 1812 more generally. Yes, you're right, George, about the U.S. military. They produced them, but not like they produced them after the First World War, right? And yeah, it was done to the point, and then obviously Korea breaks out, and then there's no reduction after that. But the size of the U.S. military is still much larger than it was, say, in the aftermath of the same time period after the First World War, right? It's massive. Like it's unfathomable how big the American military, how long and how big it's been. It's crazy how big you guys of a military you guys have. Well, I guess Napoleon said a lot of things. I just don't know how they would have even struck at France, right? How do you fight France when you literally have the territory they had in North America? And you paid for it, you already own it. They got what they wanted, right? This manifest destiny, push west at north. 54-40 fight, right? Which also didn't happen. Yeah, I mean it's still an emotional topic for a lot of people. 1812. I mean, obviously, Canada and the United States have had one of the best relationships in the world, I would argue. I'll finish this point and I'll get to Georgia in a second here. We've had one of the best relationships in the world. Our border is massive. You can literally run across it back and forth if you'd like. No one would stop you because the border is huge. There's a little strip of land cut down the middle where there's no trees or anything, and they maintain that little strip to separate them. But other than that, it's just wilderness, most of it. So I think we've had a good relationship, but for some reason, people still get worked up about 1812. Everything, the victories, the who did what, when, and where, and does this sinking of one boat make a great victory for either side? I'm like, does it matter? The war developed the way it did, but why are we still, getting angry about this stuff? We've been allies pretty much ever since. In a lot of ways, I mean, things start to really cool down in the 1830s when you guys get distracted by other things. Mexico. And after that, there's no real concern for war, right? There's the plans of invading each other, but the militaries always do that. They plan to invade everybody all the time. That's what they do. You got to do something in peacetime, right? General staff can't just sit around. So I mean, it gets a lot of people upset, particularly on the Canadian side, with things like the burning of Washington and the invasions and all that kind of stuff. And some people are like, yeah, we can take Canada. I'm like, you tried and failed. So I just like to do that. It's a little bit of ribbing, right? Maybe it's like a little ribbing between, family in a way, or cousins. And it's just, a good poke in the ribs. Kind of like, I don't know. That's how I think about it. I try not to get too worked up about it. I think it's interesting to discuss, but I mean, Canadian-American relations have changed completely since then. I still argue 1812 isn't really even a Canadian war. It takes place in Canada, sure. I'm not saying it doesn't, right? But there's fighting that takes place in the 7 Years' War in India. Is it an Indian war? No one says that, right? Happens in the Philippines too. Is anybody saying, hey, it's a Filipino war? I don't know. I don't really think so. Anyway, so that's kind of my thoughts on that. But okay, and then how are they going to fight Britain? By fighting Canada. Take Canada. Canada was still valued by Britain. Having a North American presence still mattered. Having the Northwest, as it's called, the trades, right? The fur trade, still important at this point. It's huge. It's massive. It's even massive in the United States, where you think the Astors got all their money. The fur trade is huge. It's still important. Hudson's Bay Company is still an important British company at that point. Not just going to let Canada go, right? They have to hold on to what they have, especially after losing the 13 colonies. So the United States tries to do this manifest destiny, take out Canada, which had, like I already said, permanent garrisons, British military, Navy. There's British units. They've rotated in and out just like any other colony. No different in Canada. If you'd hit them in India too, they'd be pretty pissed off, I think. Hit them in Canada, they're going to feel it. So the United States tries to take Canada because it's on the border and seems like some, easy pickings. Get a lesson in that real quick, mostly due to the weather and their own incompetence. But it's still a way to fight back. And it's also the issues. I'm not saying that the impressment, but it's more about trade, right? Open trade with the continent, which is going on with Napoleon. Also, like I said, Britain's distracted. They've got a bigger war on their hands. The United States at this point is a very small power, can do very little, can very hardly project its power past its own borders. Even then, that's not a guarantee. Look at the rebellions right after the initial period of before the Constitution is ratified. they can barely even raise a militia to stop rebellions inside the United States. So the United States isn't a big power, but they can project across the border, or try to. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to expand, as the United States did and isn't really doing anymore, depending on how you want to argue with that one. But that's U.S. history, right? Expansion, manifest destiny, keep going, right? Control the whole, Americas. Maybe leave Canada because Britons can get angry and they have a bunch of boats. But it is a way to strike back. Canada wasn't just some forgotten thing, right? Canada mattered to Britain. Canadians were British. They didn't see themselves necessarily as Canadians, except the French Canadians saw themselves as the only real Canadians. Indigenous people don't give a shit about either. So, to Britain, it mattered. Canada mattered. It has strategic importance. Halifax and Esquimalt have importance, right? Esquimalt on the West Coast. Those are important. They need those positions. They need those bases. Those are important for a very long time. So to say that, because people tend to think of Canada as a separate entity, they, take their presentism of identity, slap it back 200 years and muddy the waters. Hitting Britain and Canada was the perfect opportunity. So they thought. It didn't go well. They thought maybe after crushing Mexico. Sorry, that's later. But then they crushed Mexico afterwards. So then the attention shifts the other way, and then the expansion of trying to expand the slavery into the new territories that they conquer. But that doesn't happen, and the Civil War breaks out, obviously. So that's just my opinion on 1812. I'm not an expert on that area. I haven't done much with primary documents on 1812 at all, but just from talking to other people who have, and reading about it, and other people, and all that other stuff. So it's an interesting one. 1812 is much muddier than people want it to be on both sides of the border. I don't even think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, watching now or later, I don't think a lot of people in Britain even give a crap. I don't think they even give a crap about War of 1812 if they even know it exists. Because, Napoleon made them a little busy. Waterloo takes a little more important than Queenston Heights in British history. So again, correct me if I'm wrong, but 1812, I think, is something we put things on that we shouldn't, and misunderstandings, and muddies the water, and we put up a new memorial to it that really makes no sense, and putting things on it. So, that's just my thoughts. I think I've caught up to the question. So if anybody has anything else, go ahead. I don't really think I can do much more work today because of my finger. So there's no questions at this moment. So moving forward with the channel, like I said, I'll get those videos out as quickly as I can. Some of them need more research than others. I think I talked about it online before. What was I going to say? So I'm going to do, I'm going to release it to my patrons first, but I'll tell them there's a video coming out tomorrow. Keep an eye out for that. So moving forward, there's going to be videos on the Battle of the Thames, because I went to the location and got some footage. And I think, because my dad went with me, I think we figured out what the battle lines look like, and where everything was. We think we got that figured out. So that's something I want to do. Try to get that out. And then what else am I going to do? Oh, I've got some sweet footage of one of the old air training plan bases outside St. Thomas, Ontario. It's fascinating. It's a walking trail now. It's a nature preserve. It's beautiful. But the runways are still there. The lines for the roads and the barracks and everything are still in the ground. All the buildings have been destroyed. But the rest of it is it's amazing. And I've got some amazing footage of it. It's fascinating. So I want to do some digging on that. Got a video about two brothers that died within 11 days of each other in the First World War. Speaking of conscripts, don't want to say anymore. I can't remember if there's anything else. I was having some problem with my phone and the computer with the internet. So, because of the big outage that we had, causes me some troubles. So look forward to those. Ortona and St. Lambert. I'll see how that goes. And I'm not sure after that. Those are my plans for now. I had a question from Great Dominion. I want to. It's not that I'm not. It's just finding them and getting them on the channel. I ask people, sometimes they just ignore me. Be what it may. But I need suggestions are always helpful. If you know people who might be open to something like that, I'll try to plan a little something there if I can, depending on if I'm still doing this work more in the future, like say by the end of the summer. I'm not sure. I would love to do this, just this, and organize this all the time and do that exactly what you're asking. Do the dig and get those experts on, but I might not be able to. So it might take some time, but that is something, and I am trying to do is get more. Just trying to move away from the world wars. That's what I'm trying to do is move away from that. Not fully, but just get more content, more varied content. But it's also it's a balance, right? It's a balance, between, depending on how my future goes. If we get more patrons, that might make things a little clearer. Be that what you may. If you don't want to support, that's fine. Supporting just on YouTube is great. I love it. I'm not going to take the channel down or anything, but it won't be like what I'm doing now. I just won't be able to if I have a different work schedule. So there's that part of it. But yeah, I'd love to be able to do that. If you have any ideas, anyone, even down below, if you're, say, watching this later, about who you might think would come on and might want to talk about this stuff, even Americans who want to talk about this stuff, I would love that. Get American experts on this stuff. That would be fantastic, because then we can really get into it. But I would love to do that. I'd love to do the rebellions. I'd love to do Real. All of it. But again, what I was saying, it's a balance, right? Sometimes these things aren't as interesting to people and they just don't watch it. And I have to get people to watch things that are interesting a little bit, right? Because again, I've had that issue with monetization and things like that. So I'm hoping that resolves itself at the end of this month. And I can make a little bit. It won't be much, but anything's better than what I'm making now, which is from YouTube, other than the patrons, which are amazing. Love you guys. You guys are amazing. Other than that, it's just, you got to try and balance that, right? Variety is great, but sometimes people don't actually want variety, and then they won't watch it, and then I'm talking into the void, right? So that doesn't do me much good, does it? So yeah, that's my thoughts there. Okay, so we got some comments here, which are comment reconscription. All right, military service act, 100 days. Extended family member called up in December 1917. And yeah, as a runner at Cambrai, except he was not happy to leave his homestead. Yes, 66-year-old parents. Yeah, funny story. I don't know if I've told the full story here on the channel in any way, shape, or form. So, my great-grandfather, same sort of situation. Farmers in Essex County, outside Windsor, trade area. Only son left on the farm during the First World War. They've been farmers for generations. Big community leaders, local politics, running like the local fair, church, all that fun stuff. War comes. He doesn't enlist, even though he's of age, even in 1914. How he resisted that pressure, I don't know. Maybe just hit on the farm. I don't know. It's amazing. He gets called up when conscription first comes because he's in that first group to go. Single males, basically, of that age group. And he says, I can't. I'm the only, and I don't know how old his father was, but he was not a young man. I think it was around the same age, maybe early 60s, late 50s. And I mean, this is not mechanized farming yet, right? So there's that element of it. So he says, I can't. So they go, okay, that's fine. Call him up again, because they went back through again. And he says, I can't, for the same reasons. I'm assuming, based on the newspaper articles, I could find. Again, like I said, Lyman Duff had all these records burned. So that is part of this. But the third time, when they remove the exemptions for farmers, he goes. He doesn't go overseas. He's not in any danger at any point, other than from the Spanish flu. Sorry, 1918 influenza outbreak. I should stop calling it the Spanish flu. Same thing. They say, too bad, you're going. So he goes up to London, spends his war at Wolseley Barracks. Those of you who know it, know it. Marching on the area that is now the Real Canadian Superstore and the gas station. And that's his First World War. But that story is repeated on thousands of times because there's how many conscripts, right? So the farmers, they support the Union government because they say we're not going to conscript your sons. And then that changes real quick once the casualties start mounting. And from trench wastage, as they call it. So yeah, so that's a really interesting story. And there's thousands of them. I would love to do more on conscription. When I was still trying to do the academic tract, which I've given up on, that was going to be like my side interest. Was going to be like, you know how professors always have that list. Like I work on blah, 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 blah. Like I really want to get into conscription, like really, really get into conscription and dig into that and get into those records and see what that looked like on the ground. Because I tried to do that. And I couldn't, like, what was he doing in London for that whole time? I have no idea. Marching. You march every day for 6 months? Maybe, I don't know. There's nothing in the records, so it's weird. So I just really want to get into that and the reasons and why people said no or why they couldn't do it and all those sort of stories. I mean, there's stories of parents, literally parents, literally starving to death. Their son set to overseas and they can't afford to live and they die. It's heartbreaking, but it's just how these things go. Oh, thank you so much, George. That is so appreciated. That means a lot, especially right now, because again, I'm really barely treading water at this point. So I really appreciate that. And having my thumb down does not help. Yeah, Susan, that's a good point. I thought about this a lot and what to do. How do I say this? This is no reflection on anybody here because you guys are all amazing supporters and your HA way that you guys support me. I love it. Thank you so much. I'm going to keep saying that because it's great. Anyway, I thought about expanding it. I don't know it as well as I'd like. And I don't think it'll work, to be honest. Changing how to, because I wanted to focus on Canadian military history because it's been my interest forever, but I think it's the only area right now that has a chance of being seen as interesting in Canada. People love military history, right? I don't have to tell you guys that. I don't have to, right? It's one of the areas that gets constant attention. Museums all over the place, right? There's no, there's hardly any, I don't know. I'm sure there is, and you guys can have examples, but like other areas of history, like agriculture doesn't have as much, zing to it. There's museums all over the place, but are people getting excited about, farming documentaries on TV? Are they debating who's their favorite farmer, farm equipment maker? Maybe if you live on a farm, but I doubt it, right? People who have no connection to the military are going to go on about who's better, Patton or Montgomery. No one's talking about, John Deere or, Massey Ferguson or whatever. So, I mean, that's just an example off the top of my head. I'm sure there are people who fight about tractors. I know there are actually. But my point is, generally speaking, military history is just more interesting to people. I thought about just big on going beyond Canadian, but I don't think that'll work either. I think I'm too late to the game, unfortunately. Whatever that may be. I just think I'm too late. I should have done this earlier, but so be it. So I'll do my best to keep this moving. But I'm not trying to be, sullen and sad about it. I love doing this, and it just doesn't pay enough to pay the bills. It's not even close to minimum wage, like not even close. I mean, I'm not going to say that this is all I need, right? Because I have other things that I do. I do lots of work with Project 44, and they're amazing, and other projects here and there. But if this got a little more, oomph to it, a little more anything, even if YouTube started to, play along here. I'm doing a lot of work for them, and driving people here, and I get zipped for it. Anything like just take a little bit more would be great because I love doing this. I can't say that enough. So anyway, yes, thank you, George. Welcome. Hello, Andreas, for joining us late. Thank you. Welcome aboard. I think we're at 65 now, or that right now. I think which is amazing. That's fantastic. Thank you. I cannot say thank you enough. Question from Andreas. Have you read the Malcolm Mcphail historical series? No, unfortunately not. I was talking to somebody, I can't remember where. Maybe it was when I was down in Southern Ontario. I haven't read a fiction book in 4 years. I don't have the time to read fiction books. Between doing this and research, I read history, military history, and that's about it. I know that's not good. You don't have to tell me. I have a PhD in the area. I know I need to read more, but I don't read fiction, so maybe I should try. That's just why I wanted to say that, Andreas, because I think that's kind of giving me an impetus to be like reading a little more, try something different, think about things in a different way. Ian lived across from the Wolseley. Yeah, when I was in school. Yeah, I went to Fanshawe myself, as well as Western. I didn't live in that area, part of the area at that time, but I went to Fanshawe. I buy it every day because I lived on the other side on Oxford, and then I lived down there for a year after I finished. So I used to live right around the corner from that grocery store. It was my grocery store that I'd go to the most. So it's just so interesting that was all this training base, and yeah, Pete, who also lives in London area, I think. He's got lots of London great stuff on his channel, actually. Go check it out. He's got tons of stuff on there. It's awesome. Lots of tank stuff. I love it. And First Desires, because, I love the First Desires. I'm sorry, I was going to say, yeah, Carling Heights, that whole Carling Heights area was all base, right? They sold off in parcels eventually, right? It was massive because they took, and that's probably something I can do with one of those live stream shows I like to do now after only doing one, but I love it. There's a aerial shot of it, and you can literally see the marching paths. It's amazing, and the area is massive. Like it goes past that grocery store, down the hill, where the community center is now, the pool and everything. It's all that area. It's huge. It's massive. The Secret Life of Cows. Yeah. Yeah, the Secret Life of Cows. That would be fun. I think that would be interesting. People do work on that stuff, right? It's people work on the history of different farming, different livestock. It's fantastic. Yeah, I mean that's what it is, George. Right? Like it's more interesting than it. People love it. It like perks them up for whatever reason. It's just other stuff isn't as interesting. I mean, Craig does an amazing job. If he's still here or not, doesn't matter. With the history, with the political stuff and the hockey stuff, which obviously he's going to have a warm welcome in this country. But he does an amazing job with making that political stuff interesting. He's using TikTok, which is brilliant to get new people interested in it. It's not my area. Right? Craig's been doing this for a lot longer than I have. So I'm just not sure how that would go. You kind of have a brand identity now. That's also what I know the best, right? So I spent 6 years on a PhD. So it is what it is. Yeah, it is what it is, I guess, at this point. I think I'm too late. Too many big players really have the market cornered. Not even a jealousy thing. It's just the way the algorithm works. They will crank out videos way better than I can. Not necessarily quality better, because I don't think a lot of them are better in quality. I'm sure you guys know who I'm talking about, what I'm thinking off the top of my head. On YouTube especially, they're terrible videos, but they have hundreds of thousands of views in the blink of an eye. And I'm like, how? It's because the algorithm helps. There's some other apparently some nefarious things going on. All rumor and hearsay, but it's hard to fight the algorithm. It just needs to get critical mass at one point, or a video needs to take off, or whatever. Like it needs to just kind of gain its own momentum. I'm just not there. It hasn't happened, and I don't know if it will. Honestly, again, I just like to be honest with you guys because you guys are such amazing supporters of me. I just like being honest with you guys and telling you the truth. I'm just not sure how much longer of the full life OTD has. It's going to continue in some way, shape, or form, but it'll be probably not very much less content. I hope I don't have to do that, but I don't see it any other way, unfortunately, right now. Woody from World War II TV has been a very supporter of mine over the last, I don't even know how long, when I met him first online years ago. It's difficult. And the economy's getting worse and is headed towards a recession. I got to think about myself and my wife. So I need to make some money, and this just doesn't pay enough, unfortunately. And I might have an opportunity that will. So I have to take that. So we'll see. I will keep you guys in the loop as I always do, particularly on my patrons. You guys get the full access of information. More you'll know first, probably, because you guys have been my best supporters. Not that the other people haven't been. It's just it's the easiest way for me to contain information that I don't necessarily want getting out. Maybe not right away. So I'll keep you guys informed as best I can. But we'll see. Hopefully next week it gives me way more clarity moving forward. We'll see. I know you guys are big supporters and love the channel, and I love doing this all the time. It's my dream it wasn't my dream. I didn't really think digital history was all that big of a to-do, to be honest. At the beginning of my PhD, I thought it was kind of a joke. But now I'm like, this is the future. This is a fantastic way to do it. It's entertaining. I love it. And I think it's the best way to get Canadian military history talked about. I'm not saying I'm the only one who can do it. I would love to be the one to do it. But I get bills to pay. There's like the songs, bills to pay, mouths to feed, that kind of thing. So I don't want to bring that down anymore. But yeah, I used to do more book reviews before, Pete. I should do more. I should probably do some older books too. Well, if you guys want that, let me know. let me know now in the comments in the sidebar, but also comment below afterwards as well if you think of something. I know a lot of these get reviewed to death, but if you guys want some insights or ones you've heard of and haven't seen much because they were published so long ago, let me know. I can probably just go to the library and get them, or if I haven't read them already, because I have lots of books, as you can see. And I always have more. I got a bunch more when I was down in Southern Ontario. I just haven't had room on the shelf or time to figure it all out. So if you have something you guys are interested in, please let me know. Or if I can just do a short with little ones, right? I could do like a 5-minute review or something. If that's something you guys would be interested in, let me know. Maybe that will be the key to getting some more people on board. I don't know, honestly. I think it's fascinating stuff, though. Sorry, the comments are moving around on me. Yeah, I think you might be right there, Susan. Lifetime to figure out. I don't know. I have a very negative mindset about once you're in a job, you get stuck in it. Just from personal experience and family history. So anyway, I'm worried about getting stuck. Anyway. Normandy month make a difference. Yes, it made a big difference. Huge difference, actually, in terms of my numbers. I mean, for other channels, it's a blank drop in the bucket. For me, it was a big difference. Numbers were all up across the board. It was great. But that's the thing, right? Like that was my experiment, right? Get the numbers up, see what it would do. Get me over the hump for monetization, which it did and apparently didn't do because YouTube rejected me twice. It did. It made a big difference in every way, shape, or form. But it's so time consuming, right? Doing a live stream like that every day takes so much work. And it's not even just, say I work 9 to 5, whatever. Let's play this out. It's not just that, right? It's not just, I do it at 7 or whatever. I mean, that's stuff for my European followers because I love doing stuff in the day for you guys too. Especially because I love you guys being on the live streams because you give different insights that are missing from a North American audience. But it takes so much time to set up, get it ready, talk to people. Some people like to talk beforehand and say a Zoom and they're in Europe. What am I supposed to do? Right? I can't be like, hey, boss, I got to go out. I got to do some other work. It's difficult, right? It's not easy. Maybe I'll figure it out. I don't know. But it did make a difference. So I would love another theme moving forward. I just don't know, if there's going to be enough people to fill a theme. We could try and do it a week, but trying to get a bunch of people in 1 week is not easy when I don't have all day and time to plan. But I'm trying. I think I might do something with the Shelled. We'll see. What do you mean careful with movie reviews? What do you mean, George? I know. I'm curious. I haven't really thought about doing it. Yeah. I'm not sure what you mean. Let me know. Meeting of Generals. Oh, yeah, I should. I haven't read the full thing, but I should. Yeah, you should look at it with slight suspicion. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you really should. Yeah, I really shouldn't. You should read it. Reviews of your favorite books. So what I have done in the past, I did Hong Kong one and Normandy one. I did 5 books that I would choose if I had to be like, what do you need to know? Boom. Here you go. I could do more of those if you like. That's the thing, right? Algorithm. I need some feedback. If you want more, tell me. Get people excited. Yeah. Yeah, there's all kinds of books out there. I mean, I might do one shortly that I've already read and it's all done. So maybe. So the funny thing you say about Reluctant Warriors, Patrick Dennis was on the channel talking about that very book. It was one of the last streams back in September, sorry. Because we did it on the anniversary of the Canal du Nord attack. I've done reviews of it academically, which are behind high paywall, with the Society of Military History, which is all paywalled. And I've talked about it numerous times. It's a good book. It's good. It breaks the ground, I say. It's not the definitive account. I don't know if there's ever going to be a definitive account because I don't know how you could write one with those records destroyed. Yeah. So, yeah, that's an interesting one. I think it's missing a chunk just based on the training because he talks about, how it begins. And I've told Pat to his face. And not in a mean way. We saw each other at an event and after the review came out, he's like, fair enough. It's like, well, that's what I'm supposed to do with a review, right? An academic review. It's supposed to be like, not mean, but, what's missing. So it's it's a good book. It's just, it's missing that training element. What are they doing? Like he talks about how they, like the story earlier with the and all of that, and how they added to the ranks and everything. I think it's just missing that middle chunk. We needed something, right? All this about the conscripts were terrible, but why were they saying that? Did they have no idea what they were doing? Like, we need to fill that hole, I think. I was hoping to be the one to do it, but that's going to take an academic to do. And I'm not really an academic anymore. Yeah, I hope to do the shell too, to be honest. I really want to. But we'll see. I'll get talking to people. I think Mike Bechtel already said yes, because he's a great supporter of the channel. He's always in my corner. So we'll see. I can start planning on that. Maybe it can be like just a weeknight thing or on weekends or something. We'll see. I'm going to get in touch with people soon. I just get other stuff to finish up first. Oh, the reviews. Yeah. Yeah, the copyright stuff, I'm staying completely away from that now. Yeah, the whole copyright thing that YouTube is, I'm not saying it's none of it's copyright, it's reused material. They don't like that. That's their big thing now, is reused material. Before it's all fine and dandy. I've done like the reaction videos, right, which are popular beyond belief. I mean, I don't get it either, to be honest. But I'm not going to do anymore. Not until the monetization is approved. I don't need the ire of YouTube again. I don't want to get on the bad side of anybody. They're really fascinating because I love doing that. It's kind of like almost a public history interaction, right? Well, here's the things that people see. Well, what's going on here, right? I did a few for the First World War and Second World War heritage minutes. Some are good, some are bad. Not bad, bad's the wrong word. Just details are tweaked, and stories are conflated, things like that. Which I talk about. But again, I don't know if those are going to get me in trouble. I don't know. I hope not, because I've had enough. Yeah, you're right there, GD. They're making it more difficult. They're restricting it more. Other ones do it. I'm still working on that. The power outage, or sorry, the internet outage. My home internet is Rogers. It's still not working properly, which is a whole other thing. I was trying to explore some options. Everything's on my computer and my laptop, which I'm using right now, not on my phone. So it's difficult, right? Everything's on here, and my phone is already full. So moving things around is already a pain. My laptop's getting old. Like the USB ports aren't working properly anymore. Like this, I mean, I'm running into roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, holding me back. And just, it's a money thing. It's a technology thing. It's internet being down thing. I have one I've started. I'm not going to say what it is yet because I want to still finesse it a little bit and see if it's going to work. And once it is figured out, I will share it though, because I think that's going to be the place where the old stuff I had to take down can go. And if it monetizes, great. If not, so be it. But I just did all this work and now it's just sitting on my hard drive doing nothing and not helping anyone, because of some reused content rule. It's not bringing any copyright laws. I know that for a fact. It's all public domain. I only use public domain. So I don't want to get sued either. So, and it's not worth the headache of dealing with people and getting all frazzled about copyright. So I don't know. I'll see if that other one's a better option. I've heard it's not. It's still not, even with the recent changes. So I don't know. Becoming a historian nowadays is not easy. A lot of people can't do it anymore. You have to have independent wealth pretty much to be able to start from scratch, and I don't. So any help you guys give me that's why I'm so appreciative, and I love it, and you guys are great, and great having an audience and a community that I had been missing most of my life, having such a group of people who are so interested just like I am. I never really had that growing up. It's amazing, and I love it. And I love to make a contribution in whatever way I can. I think I'm in a good position with the PhD to be able to do so. I think some people may disagree. But that being said, yeah, I hope I can keep this up. And we'll see. I don't want to, I won't close the channel or anything like that. That's not going to happen. So it'll always be here. What's here is here. I might just not be able to crank out much more once things change, if they do change. I don't know if they will. That's not a guarantee. So I might still be end up doing this by the end of the month anyway. It might be my thing still. I don't know. That's what I do now. Look for jobs, do this. I'm doing this longer today because my thumb is still in a bit of pain. The sutures are doing their job, but it's still going to take some time. Typing all day is painful. Starts to get really throbby by the end of the day if I type even like a page, and my thumb's like, stop it. So I thought today would be a good day to sit and chat and talk and see where you guys are at, let you know what's going on. So yeah, stuff's coming. Live stream tomorrow. Check that out, same time, 2 p.m. I know Woody's gone for the next 2 weeks, so come to me if you can. Try my best to kind of fill that World War II TV-shaped hole in your heart. It's not going to be the same, obviously, as Woody and Not to the Frequency, because that man is a machine. The amount of work he does is insane. He's a trooper. So yeah, I don't think there's really much else. So I think I'll sign off. But thanks everyone for watching. All your great questions. If you like this kind of AMA style, I'm always game to do them. We've had theme ones before. Did Hong Kong. I can do more. We could always do a Normandy one. We can do a DF one. If you guys want, let me know. I'm not going to really plan them unless I get some feedback. So there's your homework. But yeah, you guys have given me lots of good things to think about. I'm going to go back through the comments later and give them all the thought you guys have talked about, so you can add those. So yeah, so I appreciate that. I appreciate all you guys. Thank you for your support, all of you. And hopefully we got a nice little community going here. I'd hate to lose that. That's really honestly what sucks the most. I don't know if this is going to sound all mushy, but like having this community means a lot to me. Like it means so much to me, and to lose it even a little, it would suck. To be honest, it would suck. Not getting guys to interact with you guys as much as I do now is gonna suck. Anyway, if that does come, I don't know if it will, but it is one of the things I would regret the most. So thank you for everyone. Sorry, I'm going to get upset now. Get misty in here thinking about it. But so thank you to everyone, and for the new patrons that have joined today. I really appreciate it. Any support I can get is fantastic. Every dollar makes a difference. Every dollar, basically, any money saves me. It buys me a day, so it buys me some time. So anyway, thank you. Thanks everyone. Again, if you got some thoughts about anything I talked about, maybe after, leave some comments down below. Those also help with the algorithm, so double win. So thanks everyone. I will talk to you tomorrow 2 p.m. Having Lewis from Defining Moments Canada come on, talk about what they do and their military projects that they've done recently with D-Day and VE Day. So stay tuned for that, and I will see everyone tomorrow. Bye everybody.